Hello, you Mayhem Makers. I am Mindy with Quilting Mayhem, and welcome back to the Summer Sampler tutorial series. So we're up to week 7. So this lovely block is called the Buckeye Beauty is the traditional name for it. And it's a nice, easy block. You're doing 4 patches, half square triangles. Super simple, good and beginner friendly for those of you that are new and beginning. So hopefully this will help you. I am going to start out with half square triangles. And I do a lot of tutorials, a lot of half square triangles. They're very popular in the quilty world. And we just start out with 2 fabrics, 2 squares. They're going to be right sides together. So if you have a print fabric, make sure those prints are together. Draw a diagonal line on the lightest of the 2 fabrics and sew 1/4 inch from either side of the line, okay? You'll cut those apart and then you're going to press them and get 2 half square triangles per set that you sew. All right, now I have been known, I press open. All right, so this is personal preference. Okay, so for those of you that ask, I do press open. I used to press to the dark side, as we put it. That was the more traditional way, and then people started pressing open. I love it. It works for me because I like them nice and flat. Okay, but you can press to the dark side. It's really, there's no right or wrong way. There's no quilt police for this. So if you are a person that wants to iron just one direction, you generally are going to press to that dark side unless if somewhere in your quilt you have to do the other direction just to get all your seams to join. But if you're pressing, usually it's to the dark, and then that way your seams will kind of nest up next to each other because they make a little bit of a ridge because you have that extra thickness because of it, the fabric all going one way. And that's perfectly fine. That's okay too. Do it that way. I just don't like having to try to make all my seams go certain directions when I start putting things together. So I go with pressing them open, and I'm just happy that way. It just works for me. So whatever works for you, please do that. But that's how I do it. So you're going to make your half square triangles for your block, and then there's the 4 patch. So a traditional 4 patch, a lot of times you may see where they're telling you to cut squares and then you put them back together. And if you're doing this pattern in a more scrappy method, you will want to do that. You will want to cut your squares and then sew them together into that 4 patch block, right? But because how I have it in the quilt, it's just 2 colors, right? So we're going to make it simple because you're trying to do multiple blocks. So you want to get it done. You don't want it to become a UFO. So I'm going to show you how to do it with a strip set method. And thought, hey, new technique for you guys. So you're going to cut a light strip and a dark strip, all right, and sew them together. You're just going to match them right sides together, and then your 1/4 inch seam allowance, as we're doing with everything, or your scant quarter, if you're concerned about things not coming out quite exact. And remember, a scant 1/4 inch is where you're just potentially inside your 1/4 inch foot. Hopefully everybody's got a 1/4 inch foot on their machine. You're sewing with your fabric just to the inside of it, so that 1/4 inch seam's just a hair under. Okay, it's not an 1/8 inch seam. That's too little. But you want it just a little bit under, and that way you potentially have room to trim things down. But you shouldn't need that for these blocks. You should be able to do a 1/4 inch and be just fine. All right. But line up your strips, same thing. Those right sides together, that 1/4 inch seam, and press it, and you're going to get a set like this. So this is why it's called a strip set, because you're just putting strips together. And you can make bigger strip sets. Just keep in mind, the more strips you do, the potentially wavier your strip set can get. So strip sets can be a little fussy. I am going to show you how to then cross cut it to turn it into a 4 patch. Okay, so I'm going to move my camera so I can give you a better view of how to now start cutting the cross section of this strip set. All right, everybody, so here we go. So my creative grid ruler, I love this because it has, you know, the 1 inch markings going one way and 1/2 inch going the other way. And I'm going to rotate this around. So I want the 1 inch markings direction of this ruler for this one, because we are cutting it at 2 3/4 versus a lot of 4 patches are usually using 2 1/2, because a lot of people will use jelly rolls. So I want to be able to find my 3/4 fairly easily. Now, for your strip set, what's key is we're going to make sure we stay with our center seam line, and we're going to trim up this end. And even though it looks fairly straight, we're gonna clean it up. Okay, now when we rotate the strip around, now we know that this left-hand side is nice and clean, and I can line it up with any of these lines. Doesn't matter. I can use, there's a white line. I don't know if you can see it. There's this white line here. I can use that. It doesn't matter. I just want to use any one of these straight lines and then line up the left side with 2 3/4. Please do not use your mat as your measuring tool unless you're using very large blocks. Any small block, please use your ruler, not your mat. You just get more accuracy that way. All right. So we're making sure we're straight on this line, 2 3/4. And set that aside. And we're just going to keep going. Now keep in mind, what's going to happen as you go is you're going to start seeing a little more of the fabric. So as you stay straight on this line, if the fabric's not straight on, let's see, this one's a little bit, so I'm going to try to move you guys down. My own weird zoom mode, and I'm not sure you can really see it. It's not off a huge amount, so I am not going to worry about it, but you're going to keep an eye on this. So if it starts to potentially like curve outward, either on the top or the bottom, or even inward, but this line starts to no longer be straight, when this line is straight, you're going to want to straighten that up. So let me cut 1 or 2 more and I'll show you, because it will happen. Because strip sets, no matter how hard you try, generally do not stay straight through the entire row. So I usually say after about 3 or 4, you want to trim it up because it just starts to get wonky, and you don't want your 4 patches to get wonky. All right, so this one's actually staying fairly straight, even though I tell you it doesn't. Oh, nope, here we go. Haha, I can already see it. So I've got a straight line here in the middle. And let's see, if I'm trying to do 2 3/4, it's a little easier to see if I put it on near this straight line here. Notice how like this side's chunkier than this side. It's just not true to size. If I can get this to stop shaking as I try to move it. So it's just a little chunkier here than here. And so what I'm going to do is just turn it back around and trim it. We just want it to stay fresh, and we're not taking a whole bunch off of it. So it's not like you're going to lose a whole block's worth in this trimming process, but we want accuracy. So I'm just taking that little funky bit that's not happy, trimming it up, and then starting over. I know it seems time consuming, but you will thank me later when your 4 patches are all nice and pretty and the right size. Okay, so then you can keep going and do, you know, a couple more cuts and just keep an eye on it. If this strip would behave for me. But yeah, so you just, key is keep the straight line on your seam line, and then you just keep an eye on this. And as long as this stays straight, you can keep cutting that 2 3 1/4. All right, so that's just the key to working with strip sets, is you can't just chop them all and not keep an eye on how they look. All right, so our 4 patch, all we're going to do then is start making sets like this. I'm going to put it together, and you know what? I got a new pin I'm going to show today. Somebody was asking about fork pins. So this is what a fork pin is. These are by the company Taylor Seville that makes magic pins. I love magic pins because the ends don't melt if you accidentally iron it. Ask me how I know. So what you do, especially for me who press open, you know, you match that seam, and then the fork pin, you make it so it goes on either side. So instead of only one side having a pin, both sides now have a pin to really seal that join together. So it's nice and happy when I go to sew it in my machine. Now remember, you still can't sew over it. You run into it and your machine might not like it. You might break a needle and then your tech is really not going to be happy. Ask me know about that one too. All right. So fork pins, this is my new love. They're not a new invention, but I don't generally use them, but I'm trying them out and I'm kind of loving them. So I'm going to go to the machine. We'll show you what that fork patch looks like. All right. So we have nice little 4 patches. We have our half square triangles. We're going to lay it out to put the block together. So keep in mind, you want this chain effect when you line up these blocks as you lay them out. And then the half square triangles, you want to make sure that dark color's on the outside and the light is on the inside. So that chain's going to pop out when you put it together in the quilt. All right. So then it's just as simple as laying them together. You don't have any seams that you need to line up right here. 1/4 inch seam here, and then we'll put it together. I'll be right back. All right, so these 2 sections together, once again, we lay it out so we make sure it's going correctly, because it's really easy to flip a row around and then sew it incorrectly. And that can be frustrating. So we're going to line these seams up again, use that fork pin again. We're just kind of going down and up. Set it straight. And what's nice is this fork pin, I don't know if you can tell, it actually has a little bend to it at the end. So while these pins down here are flat, the head is actually kind of curving up, which is nice. It kind of stays out of the way if you're going through your machine, so it's not laying flat on the table. But we're just going to sew this together and we'll be done. All right, we're all done, freshly pressed. And there is that block number 7, that Buckeye Beauty. And she is a beauty. I love her. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Remember, if you have any questions, please reach out, call us at the store, email info@quiltingmayhem. If you're local, come see us at the shop, any of that. We'll be there to help you. We want you to make sure that these blocks do not give you grief, that you're happy with it and are enjoying that summer sampler, because it's a fun thing that we do every year. We really enjoy it. Make sure you are following all our social media, you're liking and subscribing us on YouTube. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, so follow us on any of those channels that you follow, and we'll keep you up to date with everything new and fun. Have a lovely day. Keep on stitching.